Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all for being here today. It is a privilege to gather as a community to mark this important occasion, the investiture of the inaugural Andrew R. Randall Professor at Boston University School of Law, Professor Woodrow Woody Hartzog. It is my great honor to welcome all of you, and especially Professor Hartzog's family who are here today to celebrate this wonderful milestone in our dear colleague's career. An investiture ceremony is at its core about affirmation. It is a moment when we affirm our deepest institutional values, our belief in the transformative power of scholarship, our commitment to classroom teaching that shapes lives, and our responsibility to steward a law school that serves the public good across generations. Named professorships sit at the very heart of those values, at the heart of our institutional mission. They are among the most meaningful and enduring investments that a university and its community can make in its faculty. At BU Law and across Boston University, named professorships provide faculty with a prestigious platform on which they can share their ideas and with significant resources for them to pursue and grow the ambitious path-breaking work that has earned them this distinction. Named professorships allow us to recruit and retain scholars of extraordinary accomplishment and distinction, like Professor Hartzog. And they signal to our students, alumni, and peers that excellence in teaching and research is not only valued in our community, but also supported and rewarded. Named professorships also represent a powerful partnership between donors and the academic community, a partnership rooted in shared purpose and long-term vision, and the Andrew R. Randall Professorship exemplifies that ideal. Andrew Randall's life reflects a deep belief in opportunity, planning, and the compounding power of wise investment. A double terrier who earned his bachelor's at Questrom and his law degree from BU Law, Mr. Randall built a successful career in finance in New York City. But his legacy at Boston University is defined not by markets or margins, but instead by generosity and foresight. Beginning with a modest first gift in 1982 and culminating in a remarkable six-figure planned gift, Andrew Randall chose to invest in people, in ideas, in students, and in the future of legal scholarship. And we are profoundly grateful for that confidence and that commitment in our institution. It is especially fitting that the inaugural holder of this professorship is Professor Woodrow Hartzog. Professor Hartzog is one of the most accomplished and influential scholars in law and technology today. An internationally recognized expert in privacy, information technology in the law, his work examines how emerging technologies, from artificial intelligence to surveillance systems, shape power, autonomy, and democratic values. He has helped us understand not only how technologies function, but how they are designed, regulated, and experienced by real people. And most recently, along with his co-author, Professor Jessica Silby, he has helped us understand how AI may negatively impact our civic institutions, drawing the attention of literally thousands across the globe, gaining nearly 30,000 downloads in less than 3 weeks. And for many of us, we would be thrilled to have 30,000 downloads of all of our articles together. Professor Hartzog's scholarship is highly respected, highly cited, and well-placed, appearing in the nation's leading law journals, like the Yale Law Journal, Columbia Law Review, and California Law Review, to name just a few. In 2024, he was ranked number 4 on the list of most cited law and technology faculty in the United States in Gregory Sisk's 2024 Scholarly Impact of Law School Faculty's publication. And that was up from 7th 3 years earlier. In 2025, he ranked number 10 on the rankings for the most downloaded scholar on SSRN, and I imagine that's going to be even higher for 2026. And number 48 on the top 100 legal scholars of 2024, which measured the top 100 authors ranked by citations to law review articles from 2018 through 2020. And impressively, he ranks number 220 overall in Hein Online's top 250 authors according to Scholar Rank List, which is filled with literal legal giants in the field, including Professor Hartzog, literal giants in the field like Cass Sunstein and Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. In 2024, Professor Hartzog was elected to the American Law Institute. He also recently received the Future Privacy Forum's 2025 Privacy Paper for Policymakers Award. And notably, this year was his 10th time receiving this honor in the 15 years it has been given. On top of that, his insights as a public intellectual regularly reach the broader public through outlets like the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Guardian. He is the author of 2 critically acclaimed books, Privacy's Blueprint and Breached, which have shaped conversations among scholars, policymakers, and technologists alike. His book, Privacy's Blueprint, has been translated into Korean and Japanese. Professor Hartzog's influence also extends well beyond the academy. He's testified before Congress multiple times, advised state governments, served on a Massachusetts Special Commission on Facial Recognition Technology, and contributed to global conversations about AI and data governance. In a rapidly evolving field, he is a trusted voice precisely because he combines intellectual rigor with clarity, integrity, and a deep sense of responsibility. And yet, as impressive as these accomplishments are, they tell only part of the story. At BU Law, Professor Hartzog is first and foremost a teacher who puts students at the center of his work, and I can see many of his students here. He teaches foundational courses as well as advanced classes in privacy, digital civil liberties, and information law. He is one of our most sought-after professors, known for his warmth, his humor, his accessibility, and his extraordinary ability to make complex, fast-moving issues both understandable and urgent. His students routinely tell us that his courses shape how they think about the law and also how they imagine their own professional paths. The high esteem in which he is held is evidenced in the awards he has received as an instructor. Just a year after he joined our faculty in 2022, he earned the 2023 Dean's Teaching Award. And a year thereafter, in 2024, he was selected to receive the law school's most coveted teaching prize, the Michael Melton Award for Excellence in Teaching, which is voted on by law faculty who previously received that award. His joint selection by me, the dean, and all current faculty chairs on the law school faculty reflects the respect he commands across this institution as a scholar, as a teacher, and as a member of our shared intellectual community. Woody, this honor is richly deserved. We are fortunate to count you as one of our own. Our students are better for learning from you. Our faculty is stronger for working alongside you. And our broader community is enriched by the ideas, values, and leadership you bring to the work of this law school every day. The Andrew R. Randall Professorship ensures that Professor Hartzog will have the platform and support that he needs to pursue bold research, to engage with scholars and policymakers around the world, and to continue shaping a field that sits at the center of law, democracy, and human dignity. And in so doing, it also ensures that Andrew Randall's legacy will live on, not only in name, but also in impact. On behalf of Boston University School of Law, I thank the late Mr. Randall for his extraordinary gift. I also like to thank Elizabeth Clancy back there for planning every amazing detail of this event, and Arthur Martins and all of the law school's AMS team, especially Joe Graham, for their excellent technological support. Congratulations, Woody, on this well-deserved honor. We're so proud and delighted to celebrate you today. And it's now my pleasure to turn the mic over to our Associate Dean for Intellectual Life, Jessica Silby, and to Professor Stacy Dogan, both colleagues who also write in the law and technology space. Both Associate Dean Silby and Professor Dogan will say a few words about Professor Hartzog, a colleague they hold in the highest regard.
So Jessica and I have the impossible task of summarizing in 6 minutes or less the extraordinary contributions of this human being. and why everyone who has ever known him is over the moon about this moment, like everyone around the world. I'll start with a view of Woody from inside this building, and Jessica is going to follow with some words from others in the Academy. So I've been teaching for a really long time. I've got the gray hair to show it. And in that time, I've worked on a lot of hiring committees, a lot of tenure committees, and I've heard lots of gossip from students, including those in this room, about my colleagues. And I've come to appreciate and believe the conventional wisdom that no law professor offers everything. Some of us are solid scholars, but are excellent, deeply committed teachers. Others are solid teachers, but extraordinary, groundbreaking theoretical scholars. Some we expect to make a big impact internally in our community, while others spend most of their time engaging externally and sharing their ideas with the world. No one, we all understand, can do all of these things at the highest level. It's just not humanly possible. There is no idealized version of a law professor, someone who's truly extraordinary in teaching, researching, and service, and whose work has a profound impact on all of our audiences, our students, our colleagues, theorists, and policymakers, not just in the United States and around, but also around the world. Well, I'm here to report that conventional wisdom is wrong. There is an idealized law professor, and we're here to celebrate him today. Professor Woody Hartzog is an extraordinarily committed, creative, and rigorous teacher who lights a fire in his students, in their hearts and their minds. A brilliant, brave, and insightful writer who is widely viewed as one of the top privacy scholars in the entire world. A policy advocate who testifies before Congress, advises state legislators, and provides concrete and grounded proposals for how to recalibrate the balance between the power of tech firms and the privacy, dignity, and autonomy of human beings. A generous colleague who mentors junior faculty, chairs big committees, reads papers, shows up at workshops, and asks insightful questions. A devoted father, brother, husband, and son. We've heard crazy amounts of modest brags about all of you. And a killer musician to boot.
And if the sun comes up tomorrow, let her see. Oh, let her be.
I truly cannot imagine a better colleague, teacher, scholar, advocate, mentor, friend than Woody. We're so blessed and lucky to count him as our own. And I'm so grateful to Andrew Randall for his generosity in funding this chair and giving us the opportunity to celebrate the amazing Professor Woody Hartzog.
All right. So I, too, am so happy to be here to celebrate my friend, collaborator, and colleague, Woody. My job was to reach out to the larger community, privacy law and tech community, to let them know that Woody would be honored today and ask if they'd like to share any thoughts. So I'm only sharing the appropriate thoughts, Woody. I just want you to know. There are lots of inside jokes that I decided were not appropriate for this. So I'll open with comments from Neil Richards at Washington University Law School. So he says, "It's hard to think of the right words to express how wonderful a scholar and person Woody Hartzog is, how deserving he is of the Andrew Randall Chair, and how delighted for him his friends around the world are that he's receiving this great recognition. Woody's a natural academic. He's smart, curious, thoughtful, eloquent, passionate, loyal, and a masterful communicator, whether in print in the kind of formal academic presentation he's giving today, or just over drinks or a meal. He cares about the world, about the people in it, and about making sure that the technological marvels we promised don't make that world worse for the greedy few at the expense of the ordinary many." It might seem ironic that for a scholar of privacy, Woody is so outgoing and so collaborative. He writes many, many articles, but he invariably writes not by himself, but with the legion of co-authors and collaborators. Of course, as Woody's work explains, sharing with trusted friends is a key element of privacy. And his singular and thoughtful voice shines through in every one of his projects. Woody's enthusiasm for life, for people, for his family, for the world and for eating and drinking. His way through that world is authentic, infectious, and inspiring. I know no finer legal scholar, no finer person, and no better father, husband, son, or friend. Congratulations, my friend, Neil says. I can't wait to celebrate this honor with you, hopefully in some cozy pub in Europe where we can plot our next madcap project. So these themes that Neil starts us with run through all the emails that I got. Masterful communicator, outgoing and collaborative, kind and caring with all sorts of people, loves to gather around food and drink, kind and caring to the world, he strives to make the world better, innovative scholar with a singular voice who is not afraid to speak truth to power. So on the theme of kindness and caring and speaking truth to power, Evan Selinger at the Rochester Institute of Technology says, I'm proud to say my longtime collaborator and friend, Woody Hartzog, embodies the best characteristics of the two best Woodies the world has ever known. Like Woody Guthrie's protest songs, Woody Hartzog's writing about privacy sharply and clearly addresses pressing issues of power imbalances and exploitation. He may be a widely cited scholar, but his ideas and arguments are never merely academic. Laudably, they aim to rectify wrongs and inspire others. And like the ever-loyal Woody from Toy Story, Woody Hartzog's privacy scholarship often highlights the need for tech companies to do better and be better by following a duty of loyalty. On a more personal level, Evan says, I'm grateful for the loyalty he's shown me and so many, shown me and so many others over the years. Woody always has your back. So Ignacio Cafone at Oxford Faculty College of Law describes how Woody's work, quote, combines conceptual clarity with a practical understanding of how law actually operates in technical systems and markets. He moves past diagnosing to show how law can be rebuilt in useful ways. He is generous with his time, feedback, and energy. He makes the field better just as much through his scholarship as he does through the way he builds community around it. The Randall Chair could not have a more fitting inaugural holder. So closer to home, we hear from our former colleague, Danielle Citron, who doubles down on the theme of community, both intellectual and collegial. Woody is uniquely talented and uniquely treasured in the privacy community. He is an intellectual of the highest order. Yes, he brings his unparalleled wisdom to lawmakers and makes change in the world, and throughout it all, he makes time to sit and help his colleagues. There is nothing better than sitting with Woody and getting his advice on scholarly projects, often over a beverage of choice. My work is all the better, all the stronger, because Woody helped me. I count my lucky stars. We met in 2010 when he was just out of grad school and I in my early years as a law professor. He is at the center of our community. He is our glue, and I am so lucky to call Woody one of my best friends and colleagues, and we are all out here cheering and celebrating this milestone. I only wish I could be in the room to hug him and you all. So there are many emails that focused on how Woody can be so disarming with his charm and yet so biting with his criticism and ferociously passionate about his policy proposals. So Mark McKenna at UCLA describes Woody as the most unassuming, brilliant person you'll ever meet. I've watched him many times disarm a truly stupid question with Southern charm and quick wit. Always making a devastating point, but also always making the interlocutor think that they said something productive. It's a real gift. We could all probably learn a lot from that. There's a short list of people I'd enthusiastically encourage my own kids to study with, and you know from Mark that's saying a lot. Woody tops that list. It gives me such joy to know that he's being recognized today. Love you, buddy, he says. So Bill McGivern, the current dean at University of Minnesota Law School, describes Woody as one of a kind. In addition to raving about his knowledge, brilliance, and insight, Bill described the first time he really noticed Woody at a post-conference gathering years ago in DC. As Bill describes it, the gathering turned into a musical jam session. And Woody, a junior scholar, I didn't know all that well, grabbed a guitar and did an incredible guitar shredding, full-on vocal cover of Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I've loved him ever since. So finally, let me end with an email from Dan Solov. at George Washington, the person who credits himself, he was going to give himself credit, you know that, with discovering Woody as a graduate student. Woody was in the first privacy law I taught, said Dan, when I was visiting at GW Law. I could already tell that he was special that semester, but in the years since, his star kept shining brighter and brighter. We've become great friends, and it's been such a joy to co-author projects with him and have him as a colleague in the field. Woody is one of the most brilliant, fun, down-to-earth, friendly, and kind scholars in the academy, and on Earth itself. If the whole world were populated by Woodies, imagine what an amazing place it would be. When I began mentoring Woody, when he said he wanted to be a law professor, in his typical humble way, he said he wasn't sure he'd make it. I thought he'd be successful, and he's excelled far beyond expectations, and I had high expectations. He's become true titan in the field, one of the all-time greats, already a Hall of Fame career, and I'm proud because I feel like the scout who drafted Otani into the academy. Congratulations to Woody on this well-deserved recognition. He has achieved monumental things. Just his 100 duty of loyalty papers would be career achievement for the most academics, but this is just a fraction of the wide breadth of his scholarship. But most of all, Woody stands peerless for being just a superb human being. He's truly great in every possible way, and this chaired professorship is long overdue. So I could go on. I'm leaving out many others. I will share all the others with you, from Claudia Haupt, from Julie Cohen, from Ari Waldman, and many others. All told, what this tells us, this community, is that we are really right to be standing here and celebrating Woody. And so on a personal note, Woody, I couldn't be more thrilled to be on this journey with you here at this school, in this community. Finding your faculty family is a hard thing to do in this field. And there's no doubt that you help make this place feel more like home for all of us. So thanks for bringing your family. Way back when, in 2017, you made the trip from the south to the north. All those years ago, Jen, Romy, and Will, thank you for convincing your dad to come along with us. Congratulations to all of you. Congratulations, Woody.
All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you. No. I'm beginning. Mental note to self. I didn't realize that all my stories ended and we were at the bar and we had this great idea. But maybe that's just where the best ideas come from. All right. Thank you all so much for this incredible honor and opportunity to speak with you all today. I'm so grateful, and if I'm being honest, I'm a little uncomfortable at being in the spotlight for this event, which is weird for me because I, like most law professors I know, love being the center of attention. But also, like most law professors, I think that my discomfort comes from the fact that I can't help but shake the feeling that I'm a fraud. If you knew how many people are responsible for me standing here today, you'd understand why I consider this a collective honor and not a title that solely belongs to me. I am here because of the people in this room and so many countless others. And before I actually continue, anyone sitting in the back, you're welcome to come fill up the seats up front here. We've got some for you if you want. Now, before all of you realize that I don't actually know what I'm talking about, I'd like to extend a few heartfelt thank yous to the people in this room. To begin with, although he's no longer with us, I'd like to thank Andrew Randall for his remarkable gift to create this chair and for the trust that he's placed in Boston University to steward it. This gift is an obligation to strive for truth and justice that I take seriously, and I will do my best to make it count. Thank you also to the singularly luminous Dean Onwuachi-Willig, who has been a remarkably strong and amazing leader of this institution, and I'm incredibly grateful for you every day. I'm also deeply grateful to my brilliant colleagues who are here today, many of whom sat on the committee that selected me to receive this chair. And to be clear, I'm not just saying that they're brilliant because they selected me to be on this chair. They are brilliant despite selecting me to have this chair. A special thanks to my dear, dear friends, Jessica and Stacy. A special thanks. You mean more to me than you will ever know. And I can't tell you how much I appreciate your kind words and your friendship and your leadership. And it's true. It is great to find your work family here. To my amazing students, it is the honor of my professional life to get to be your professor. To everyone that is sitting here today, thank you for your support and your interest in this talk. In full disclosure, I did make the students attend today as part of the class, but I hope the rest of you are actually here by your free will. This includes my family sitting right here, who you've already been introduced to via camera. So to my beloved wife, Jen, who I share this honor with, excuse me, because we've been together since before I decided to go to law school. Jen first listened to me rant about privacy when we were still accessing the internet through a dial-up connection. She has been my sounding board, my editor, my moral support, and the constant source of warmth and love in my life. She reminds me every day why human intimacy, joy, and meaningful relationships are worth centering in the fight to privacy. I love you to death, and am so grateful that you are my person. I also want to thank my dad, Rick, who is also here. In many ways, my dad started me down this whole path one day back in 1985 when he brought home a new Commodore 128 personal computer to our home in Byram, Mississippi. We set it up in my room, and then we just looked at it for an hour because we had no idea how it would work. And I remember asking my dad, like, what are we supposed to even do with this machine here? And he sort of scratched his head, and he was like, I guess homework on it? And in a sense, I suppose I've been doing my homework on computers ever since. I'd also like to note that my dad is incredibly, oh, thank you so much, incredibly obstinate. And I think my wife will tell you that he has passed that along to me, but that's come in quite useful in helping me stand my ground in disagreements over privacy and technology law. And this happens more than you would think, like when I'm arguing with an industry lobbyist at a hotel bar at a conference, or with the senator doing a congressional hearing who insists on a simple answer when there is none to be had. So Dad, thanks for teaching me how to be stubborn. I want to thank my sister Deanie, who even though she is younger than me, has taught me more than I will ever teach her. She showed me that if you want to do something meaningful, it's probably going to be hard, and it means that you're going to have to work till you drop and then work some more for it. She also showed me that beautiful writing can have both heft and levity, and every time I sit at the keyboard, I try to write like her. I want to thank my kids, Will and Romy, who have fueled my interest in privacy in more ways than one. I appreciate them tolerating my endless explanations about how big tech companies are up to shenanigans, or how authoritarian governments use surveillance to put a boot on our necks. And I'm sure they are tired of me yelling at cryptocurrency and AI commercials during the Super Bowl, but they humor me nonetheless. And I'm so incredibly proud of them and inspired by the way that they have navigated a world that is increasingly difficult for young kids to avoid being watched, manipulated, distracted, and lured by the siren call of constant connection, exposure, and gratification. Our children are wise, they are kind, and they are brave. I love you too more than life itself, and thank you for not hating me when I said you can't have Instagram. Finally, I want to thank someone who is no longer here with us. As many of you know, my mom, Debbie, passed away unexpectedly a few years ago. And to be honest with you, my family and I are still adjusting to the new normal without her. There's a lot that I would like to say about her, but for now, let me just say this. In all the talks I've given, in all the papers and books I've written, and all the relationships that I have formed, if you have seen an ounce of kindness, grace, or humanity in me, then that is just a mere inkling of the light that was in my mom. My mother's care for other humans, her fierce loyalty to her friends, and her confidence, her empathy for others who are fighting their own battles is my vision of the good. And if my work in any way manages to increase the amount of care, loyalty, and empathy in this world, it is because of her. Okay. With all that being said, now I'm really going to bum you out. Because I've been studying information privacy for about 25 years now, and I'm here to tell you, I think we messed up. I'm going to tell you a story about how we arrived at this world where we no longer notice every CCTV camera that monitors our movements, why we struggle against the temptation to always be scrolling and clicking on our phones, and why we can't help it but escape that sinking feeling that these phones are spying on us and leaking that information to the highest bidder. And too often, the winner of that bid is an increasingly fascist government hell-bent on leveraging tools like artificial intelligence and facial recognition to entrench their power in ways that lead to unspeakable amounts of human misery, with a particular animus against the most marginalized and vulnerable among us. So you can see now why I'm not very much fun to hang out with at parties. Now, you might not believe it, but I'm actually a very optimistic person. Why else would I, or any of us really, continue to show up every single day to fight for justice? And because of that optimism, I'm not going to end the story there. I also want to tell you about a different world, a better world, one where the default presumption is that we should not and are not being watched. In this world, our rules do not burden people with the impossible task of protecting their own privacy against the most powerful companies ever created. In this world, tech companies don't just chuck a bunch of useless privacy knobs and I agree buttons at us and call it a day. Instead, in this world, our whole technology law framework will be built around the idea that our tools should be designed to support the central human capacities that are necessary for us to flourish as individuals and collectives. Now, I'm talking about being able to think, move, act, and speak freely without having to chill or conform our behavior. Being able to reason, play, and have attachments to other people without having our intellectual and emotional development stunted by fear of being manipulated, exploited, or otherwise treated as merely a thing from which data is to be extracted. And in this world, the better world of information privacy law, our autonomy and dignity will be protected against slowly but surely being eroded by industry and governments over time. Lawmakers will understand that privacy is not just some niche rule for secrets, but rather the foundation of a fruitful life, that privacy is a key restraint against government and industry abuse of power. By the end of this talk, I hope you will see that there also are ways for us to get there. Okay, so the best place to start, they say, is the beginning, and so we shall. America's first serious foray into privacy started with a law review article by Samuel Warren and Louis Brandeis across the river here, titled "The Right to Privacy." This article became so popular that eventually every state in America recognized some version of Warren and Brandeis's call to create a tort that would let people sue others for violating their reasonable expectation of privacy. That is, if the defendant's actions were highly offensive to a reasonable person. Law professors can only dream of having the influence that this article had. With a little help from torts legend William Prosser, Warren and Brandeis charted the course that conceived of privacy as an individual right. Think about how we say things like, "You have violated my right to privacy." This world, where we all exist on our own little privacy islands, also prioritizes the protection of personal information that is intimate, secretive, closely connected to our personhood and our dignity, and if it's collected or revealed, it would be highly harmful to us. I'll come back to this trajectory in a minute. Our modern approach to information privacy started in the early 1970s, when the electronic databases first started to get popular. People started to worry about the fact that for the first time in human history, it was getting quite easy to perfectly preserve personal information, aggregate it with other information, analyze that aggregation for insights, and search for specific keywords, and then share it in its aggregated, perfectly preserved state. So, because of this, a bunch of smart people in the US Department of Health, Education, and Welfare got together and decided to create a few ground rules for data protection in a report on how to process personal data fairly. These rules would come to be known as the Fair Information Processing Principles, or FIPS for short. The idea behind the FIPS was that if companies were going to start processing data willy-nilly, people should be given a say in what data of theirs is collected, how it's used, and that they should be able to correct or delete any incorrect or irrelevant information. In short, the FIPS hold that people should be put in control of their informational destinies. Like Warren and Brandeis's law review article, the FIPS proposed in the Hugh report became wildly influential. So much so that it started to get reflected in big governance frameworks like the one developed by the OECD, which then influenced all sorts of directives and regulations in Europe, in the US, and eventually around the world. The message became clear. Data processing should be the object of regulation, and the goal of that regulation should be to give people control over their personal data. Fast forward to now, and what we've got here in America is a smorgasbord of torts, constitutional rights, administrative regulations, electronic surveillance statutes, consumer protection rules, and state data privacy rules. My students who are sitting here will attest to the fact that it's a little bit of a mess. The upshot is that U.S. privacy law basically held tight to these ideas first proposed in Warren and Brandeis's article in the Hugh report to build a foundation of rules, sometimes referred to as a patchwork, that rests on three major ideas. One, individuals should control their informational destinies. Two, rules should target how other people handle our data. Three, we should protect our most intimate, secret details from exposure. Sounds great, right? Most of us are probably on board. It sounds like a reasonable thing to do. But here's the problem. As you may have noticed, things are not going great. Companies and governments now collect more information from more sources ever before, and lawmakers' familiar responses have not helped. We have a record number of privacy rules, and yet we have never been more exposed. Social media and artificial intelligence have pushed our privacy to the brink. Now, some might say this is a failure of enforcement. If we actually enforce the rules we have on the books, then in the way that they were envisioned, then maybe we wouldn't be in this mess. And it's certainly true that of the major failures of privacy law, one of them is lack of enforcement. So I want to make it clear that rigorous enforcement is a necessary step if we are ever going to meaningfully protect our privacy in America. But I want to argue today that more enforcement is not going to be enough. In fact, my fear is that more of the same will only dig us deeper into the privacy hole. Let me explain. It's hard to argue with the ideas of individual control, limits on data processing, and the privileging of sensitive information. Let me unpack these bit by bit. Let's start with control. Control sounds great. It's a wonderful thing to be empowered. It's autonomy enhancing. It gives us freedom of choice. But up close, things fall apart very quickly. First, the control that privacy law gives us is illusory. It's not as though I can call Google up and tell them to only collect my geolocation when I'm driving on Tuesdays and only when I'm driving to Trader Joe's. People can only click on the options that are provided to them, and companies have a massive incentive to leverage the design of their products to manipulate and wheedle people into oversharing. My wife and I give this fake control to our kids very often, like when I give my kids the choice between going to the beach or going to see a musical. They feel empowered because they got to choose, and what they haven't noticed is that I have successfully staved off a conversation for a new puppy for 1 more month. Control is also overwhelming. People today are gifted with a dizzying array of switches, delete buttons, privacy settings, but these choices are too often an overwhelming obligation. People might remember to adjust their privacy settings on Facebook, but what about Instagram, TikTok, Google, Amazon, Snapchat, Siri, Cortana, Fitbit, Candy Crush, their smart TV, the robot vacuum cleaner, their Wi-Fi connected car, and their kid's AI-powered stuffy? The problem with thinking of privacy as control is that if we are given our wish for more privacy, we are given so much control that we choke on it. Finally, control over data is myopic. When my data is collected, it doesn't just affect me. For example, maybe someone is collecting data about my relationship with friends and loved ones. Data is so often what other scholars have called the story of us. Who's to say that my control over data should trump your control over that same piece of information? Like when my sister gave our DNA to 23andMe, and I was like, that's my data too, but I don't get to control that choice, right? On top of that, while it's possible that certain uses of data don't endanger me, companies regularly use my data to power a surveillance tool like facial recognition that we know will be used on marginalized populations like people of color first and hardest. When the majority that has less to fear from the exercise of political power keeps consenting to all manner of data collection, it further endangers those who are already vulnerable. Individual control is a broken approach to privacy because it's agnostic to how data creates power and how that power is likely to be used to abuse and exploit marginalized groups that have less power to fight back. All of this to say, the goal of giving individuals control over their personal data has led us to a dead end. Second helpings of I agree buttons and turgid, unreadable terms would not have prevented Cambridge Analytica, nor our current epidemic of data breaches. Nor will they prevent problems of manipulation, discrimination, or oppressive surveillance that we face in a future of automation. That brings me to privacy law's second major failing, which is an almost single-minded focus on personal data. Since data processing is so risky, it's a natural focus for our rules. Databases make the world go round. Why wouldn't we build our privacy rules around them? But here's the rub. Our privacy is affected far more than just what data is collected, how it's used, or who it's shared with. The design of systems and tools matters just as much, and it has largely been ignored in most privacy frameworks. But it really shouldn't be, because design is everywhere. Design is power, and design is political. When I say privacy-relevant design is everywhere, I mean it's the kind of thing that you can no longer afford to ignore. It's the reason there are now cameras in our eyeglasses and the reason we can scroll our phones literally forever without once having to refresh our screens or take a pause to click a button. Design is power because every design decision makes a certain reality more or less likely. Because people react to signals and constraints in predictable ways, the design of technologies can influence its users into making particular sorts of decisions. It's no mistake that you feel glued to social media and disassociate when doom scrolling. It is by design that you feel compelled to pick up your phone every 2 minutes. User interfaces and notifications were designed to maximize your engagement and time on screen. When design makes things easy, we are more likely to do them. When design makes things hard, like having to click through 10,000 screens to cancel your Amazon account, we are more likely to give up and look elsewhere. The power of design makes it dangerous for privacy law to ignore. Finally, there's a mistaken assumption that the tools that we use are neither inherently good nor bad. What matters is how you use them. Don't believe it. There is no such thing as a neutral technology. By definition, a technology is meant to act upon our world in a particular way, and the process of design does more than just envision uses. It picks winners and losers. And the costs are increasingly broader than just finding out our secrets. It's not just data that big tech companies are now after. Modern AI-driven systems powered by our personal data now have the capacity to capture our time and our effort and dictate what we see and what we can do. Industry's mandate to maximize shareholder value ensures that no human resource, including our thoughts, our relationships, our attention, our labor, and our environment, remain unexploited. Personal data is now powering the artificial intelligence engine that threatens to collapse our already enfeebled civic institutions like higher education, journalism, the rule of law, and democracy itself. Unless lawmakers step in, AI systems will result in more skill atrophy than we're starting to see now, and I fear degrading expertise. AI will continue to replace human decision makers in organizations if the trend holds, depriving institutions of a source of moral courage and key points of contestation and opportunities to build solidarity around a shared mission. And these systems will continue to isolate people, further fraying at our social fabric and our shared civic purpose. For better or for worse, privacy law and the privacy law profession is the most adjacent to this disaster, and it's in the best position to step in and mitigate it, I think. But to do that, privacy law has got to focus on more than just control over personal information in databases. Finally, privacy law's prioritization on protecting sensitive, intimate data also makes total sense, because if that information is wrongfully collected or shared, it's the one that can do the most harm. It also makes a certain amount of sense for privacy law to focus on this because it leaves the less sensitive parts of our lives unprotected, and that's useful for a country that's dedicated to free expression. In order for free expression to be meaningful, we need to be able to observe and share the more common and functional bits of our lives in service of broader goals like social bonds and self-governance. And so to paraphrase Syndrome from Pixar's The Incredibles, which I never thought I was going to actually cite, if everything is private, then nothing is. So I can see why singling out sensitive data for protection and prohibiting only those actions that lead to concrete legal harms is a logical approach. But this prioritization of sensitive data at the expense of normal data is a recipe for disaster. First, when you look only for the most egregious privacy violations, the one that strike the most precious and sensitive parts of our lives, you're leaving all the mundane and ordinary parts of our lives exposed and ripe for the taking. That's a huge problem because what happens is that companies would then get to freely monitor the mundane. Industry and governments eagerly monitor the ordinary because they want the big picture. So they watch, and we get used to it. What once seemed weird or out of place becomes unexceptional and commonplace. Does anyone remember the first time you encountered a Ring doorbell camera? I remember seeing one for the first time and thinking, oh, I guess we're doing cameras on doorbells now. And then I promptly forgot about it, right? We used to feel the same way about CCTV cameras, but I'm betting that no one here has even thought twice about the fact that there's a camera in the back of the room staring at you right now. Once people start to see technologies like CCTV or facial recognition as normal, a weird psychological phenomenon known as favorably disposed normalization happens. Once people start to see this, they start looking at what everyone else is doing, and we start to sometimes take our moral cues from other people. In other words, if we see other people doing it, we will often come to see the common adoption of a new technology is acceptable, if not desirable. It's also human nature to rationalize our own use of a technology as okay because we want to avoid the difficult conclusion that we're acting wrongfully. So as time goes by, we become not only acclimated to these technologies, but dependent upon them. We should have heavily regulated Uber years ago, but now people have come to love and have grown dependent upon the fact that you can pull out your phones, press a button, and a car just for you will come squealing up to the curb. Social media hollowed out our traditional journalism outlets, and now it's where we get most of our news. People would riot if all of this went away overnight. The economy would tank and take their 401ks with it. And so this is where things get real difficult. Scholars in science and technology studies talk about a phenomenon known as the Colin-Ridge dilemma. The idea is that lawmakers face a real catch-22 in regulating technology. If they interfere too soon before society fully knows the risks of a technology, like if they had regulated the internet when it was still a little baby, then they might have over-regulated and keep society from gaining the advantages of this new wonderful tool. But if lawmakers wait too late, then society becomes acclimated and dependent upon these tools, and then we get stuck on the path that could have more easily been altered in earlier days. I've heard other scholars refer to this as the avocado ripeness problem. Not yet, not yet, not yet, too late. One reason that industry has avoided accountability for all of their privacy harms is that they know how to use the Colin-Ridge dilemma to their advantage, and they do it quite well. All industry has to do to avoid accountability is muddy the debate about how to regulate technology. You will hear narratives like, well, the research isn't crystal clear. We don't have definitive proof that social media is dangerous for kids. Or you hear a different version, which is that every older generation thinks the younger generation is being corrupted by a new technology. There's a certain amount of truth in that. I'm regularly accused of fomenting a moral panic. As long as I've been giving this talk, I've lost count at how many times I've heard something argument to the effect of strong AI rules will stymie innovation and hurt small businesses, which is a false choice that I'm happy to get into in Q&A. But these narratives feel true, right? They have a sort of Stephen Colbert truthiness to them. And so industry keeps saying these things over and over until people become so acclimated to and dependent upon these systems that they can no longer muster the political will for robust rules or rigorous enforcement. In other words, all big tech has to do to avoid accountability is stall. until society has become so acclimated and dependent upon the tool that we have reached the point of no return. Once that happens, tech turns its sights to the next battle, and all it does is just need to outlast, and the cycle repeats ad infinitum. One of the worst tragedies of tech law's point of no return is that we so easily forget all that we've lost because the idea of dramatically changing how our digital system works is simply too difficult for us to envision. So here we find ourselves, pot committed to a privacy law framework that is built upon the idea that individuals should control their informational destinies, that our rules should target data processing and little else, and that we should protect only our most intimate secret details from exposure. And if our goal is to preserve autonomy and dignity and our capacities for flourishing, I think we are largely failing. But I promised you some optimism at the end of this talk, and I am a man of my word. All is not lost. I think there's a way to right this ship yet, and it starts with us, here in this room. And while I modestly mean that literally, what I really mean is that the only way things are going to change is starting locally, with the people who live close to us, who work with us, and who share the responsibility of civic life with us. Things seem pretty dark in America right now, and Silicon Valley's heel turn to supply authoritarian regimes with as much surveillance capabilities and data as they could ever wish for is part of the reason why. But the solidarity that we have seen in Minnesota and elsewhere is proof that people can still come together as neighbors, as co-workers, as members of a community that they value, to fight back against the ominous headwinds of malice and corruption that we are facing. I am often asked at privacy talks and by the press what people can do to protect their privacy, and my answer is always the same. There is nothing that you can do. There is something that we can do. And it starts with an idea. Once these ideas catch fire, they are hard to dislodge. So the idea that I'm pitching today is that privacy isn't just about individuals. It's about relationships, communities, and the well-being of society as a whole. And what starts with the showing of solidarity to your fellow neighbor can manifest in local rules that prohibit the use of facial recognition in dangerous contexts, like what happened in Portland, Oregon, or even here in Boston, Somerville, and Brookline. From there, state lawmakers can be put on notice that we, the people, want meaningful privacy rules that go beyond just data processing. When that happens, we get laws like Vermont's Design Code Act, which mandates strong default privacy settings and design protections for minors, or Nebraska's Design Code Act, which prohibits manipulative user interfaces. State lawmakers have always been lauded as laboratories for democracy, and so should it be with privacy law. Targeting design and supporting infrastructure is key to making good privacy interventions last. Finally, lawmakers given a democratic mandate will be more empowered to embrace the idea that the ordinary and the mundane parts of our lives are sacred, and the law should treat it as such. Instead of focusing on sensitive versus non-sensitive data, we should distinguish between human sporadic observation and sustained machine observation that happens at scale. Acting early and out of precaution is not too much to ask when even the founders and developers of these tools are terrified of what they have created. So while we've explored some dark places today, I actually hope you don't walk away feeling despondent. Despite of everything, I'm still incredibly hopeful. Every day I see the light that is necessary for us to get privacy and the rest of this mess right. When lawmakers go beyond protecting my privacy and start protecting our privacy, when our rules protect not just our data, but the structure of the world that we live in and the options that we are given, when our laws prioritize not just our most secret and intimate information, but the blessedly ordinary and mundane, in that world, we can all be free. Thank you for coming today. I'm truly honored and humbled by you. I can take a few questions. Yeah. I'm happy. We have a microphone here, so if you have any questions, I think, thank you.
Oh, did you have your hand up, Will?
No.
Oh, okay.
You just took 10 years off of Will's life.
Will might have insights into this. Woody, just a quick question about how you felt about the Ring commercial in the Super Bowl last night and the lost dog finding.
For those of you that were watching the Super Bowl, Jen told me that I had to stop after the first 5 commercials, that there was a standing objection on the floor to the AI commercial. So for those that have seen it, the Ring commercial had this adorable baby puppy. And if you think Ring's business model is helping find adorable baby puppies, then I have a bridge to sell you. It terrified me. It terrified me because we're actually sort of openly advertising, like, no one can ever be lost ever again, and we can find you wherever you are, right? And that truly troubles me when a lot of that is then being facilitated to law enforcement access or who knows. And so I don't know. I only threw one shoe at the television this year, which is good, but I was worried about that commercial. Oh, no, I think it was actually the Claude commercial that said did anyone see the Claude commercial, the AI commercial? And they're like, we're not doing, it was really funny, so I have to get it's props. But it was like, what if you were talking to a therapist and the therapist was like, there are also cougars in your area if you'd like to, get on this dating service. And they say, Claude's not going to do AI, but it's a clever sleight of hand.
Woody, that was brilliant, amazing. I have a question about foreseeability and kind of looking back. So looking forward, looking back. But how should the law handle this question of not knowing what the harms are that may result from certain technologies? And relatedly, if you could go back over the last 30 years, where would you have intervened and how? Or where would you think the law should have intervened and how?
That's a great question. Generally speaking, I've come to think that a lot of this could be solved by general salvaging of the precautionary principle, the idea that we should move very slowly and upgrade sort of existing things and sort of carefully and planned out rather than the move fast and break things sort of ideology that took hold, I suppose, in the 90s and 2000. So there are probably several places that would have been helpful. Having a meaningful privacy law before social media hit would have been really helpful. Particularly one with a strong data minimization rule. I think that Ethan Zuckerman once wrote that the original sin of the internet was advertising. And so I think it would have been really helpful to have some frameworks in place that would have explored alternative models that would not have created the incentives that led to social media and the sort of fracturing of attention. Also, this is Section 230 is a little bit of a sacred cow, but it's probably worth at least revisiting that conversation. Maybe not in repealing it entirely, but thinking about enacting meaningful tort liability for software development, which is still a decision that I've never quite understood. And then the final thing about the final sort of answer to your question is. I tell every class, and my students will recognize this, has to decide between rules and standards. And so for those that aren't familiar, standards in the law are sort of broad and there's lots of room for interpretation, and rules are very bright line, like drive 55 miles an hour. You know exactly when you violated that. I think that standards are important because they're flexible, but they tend to be overrepresented in technology law. Bright line rules create less room, I think, from a sort of tech companies trying to design their way around them, right? Because that we can anticipate that. And so I think having more bright line rules and sort of outright prohibitions would help. And also a commitment to infrastructure. So a lot of what we've seen here is a sort of move fast, break things, dispose of it mentality, whereas I feel like commitments to a lot of the the institutions, so Jessica and I's paper about sort of civic institutions, but also physical infrastructure, I think would really help. And so a lot of what I've tried to do in technology law is say that there are a lot of stuff that's not technically technology law, like tax law, where I think I saw Steve Dean, who would probably agree that tax law probably has a large role to play in holding tech companies accountable. Corporate governance, where Scott, he's here somewhere. Scott, corporate governance has a sort of role to play in this. Like, technology law is more than just technology law, if that makes sense. And so trying to get a vision of that, I think, is probably the next project. I'm thinking about interventions at those stages and how they all fit together. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Woody. Congratulations, and really enjoy your talk. I want to ask about the contrast between sort of the shrinking privacy of individuals and what seems to be the expanding secrecy of our government.
Oh, yeah.
And so, for example, the disappearance of CDC web pages, Centers for Disease Control web pages, to the pulling teeth to get the Epstein files released, even though there was an order to do so. And I could go on. So the government's amassing all of our data, and we're surveilled at all times, and yet it seems that it's harder and harder for citizens to get access to information about what our government is doing.
Yeah.
And then I add on top of that Palantir, which to me is like a supervillain.
They didn't even read the book, it seems. Like,
Yes.
they were like, what's the evil orb that turns everyone evil when they look into it? Let's call our company that.
That's right. That's right. And this idea of a technocracy that might be coming, where the technology companies sort of take over the government. I mean, this is a little bit of catastrophizing, but I'm curious what you think, and whether you are a catastrophist in this way, or whether you think we can turn this around.
I mean, I'm accused of being a catastrophizer a lot, but I actually am not. I just sort of want to call the stakes as I see them, so that we can then. I feel like there's a lot of hype, or particularly in the AI space, right? So there's a famous quote in technology law circles that any technology of sufficient complexity is virtually indistinguishable from magic. And so we sort of tend to see it that way. And so I think that often clouds, I think, some of the risk around this, because we just sort of ascribe it to magic, and these moral choices get sort of woven into machines. And so there were several parts to your question that I'll try to break apart. The first one is, what about in privacy circles, we call this privacy for me but not for thee problem, right? Which is that there's this sort of tension. Privacy often gets I think, used as an excuse to hide information, right? And so there's also a sort of free expression counterweight, and there's an additional problem, which is that a lot of the rules that were originally required for transparency, like the Freedom of Information Act, there's some really good work by Margaret Quokka, if you haven't read it, called FOIA Inc., that some of the main people that now use those information requests are data brokers, and they just get that information and sell it to anyone they can. So, like, there is this like real tension, and so I don't want to downplay that. But there's a subcomponent which deals with regulatory monitoring in tech law, which is that if we're going to actually find out what's happening, we need to know what both governments and technology companies are doing. And this is what I meant by infrastructure, Stacy, actually. So building out the infrastructure for regulatory visibility into what tech companies are doing, and also having it run the other way. And so part of this movement, part of this idea that I hope to sort of build out, is that we're not going to have meaningful accountability unless we are able to monitor what's happening, how this power is being amassed technologically and how it's being used. And so it's really hard because infrastructure is boring, right? And like, nobody wants to talk about it, and it's not fun to campaign on, but it's like maybe one of the most important things. And so I'm going to try to find a way to make it sexy, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to do that or not.
Woody, that was just a masterful talk, really pitch perfect, and an inspiration for your colleagues. I wanted to ask, though, about the irony that, I mean, as you acknowledge, we now get our media, we get our news through social media, but they're also one of the main targets of your reforms. And so there's a profound political economy epistemic problem. It's, you're picking fights with people who buy oil by the barrel. I mean, ink by the barrel.
Right.
Or hear bits by the barrel. So it seems almost intractable, when Musk can drop hundreds of millions of dollars into a presidential election, or he's just dropping 10 million here or there last week. I wonder if and inspired by the way you mentioned in your talk how privacy law found its initial moment in the state common law developments. I wonder if progressive states with unelected judges might be that glimmer of hope. And is there a way to get any of this reform through the common law evolution where you maybe don't have those political economy and epistemic wins?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I think that one of the projects that I started, so I'm sorry I begin every answer to a question with, as I tell my students, but it reminds me of a lesson that I tell my students. And one of the things that I tell them is that when you have a paper or a topic that you're writing and you try to explain it to me, and they know if they come sit with me, I ask them to explain their paper in one sentence. And if you can't do that, then you actually don't know what you're writing about yet. You're not clear enough in your mind about what it is that your thesis is. And so I started a project, and this is me actually just a little humility on my part. I started a project a couple of months ago called Privacy's Order of Operations that tries to address this exact issue, which is how do we start? What are the levers of power that can change? And this is one of the reasons actually I really love your project, Chris, is like, what's the sort of low-hanging fruit that we can get some wins on, right? Like sometimes you just need to gather, rack up a few wins and then you can build some momentum, right? And I started that, and it occurred to me that the problem was sort of so vast, like the further I got, I didn't even know where to start. And so I'm still thinking about how to unpack that. My hope is the common law. I tell my tort students, I love the common law. It's inherently conservative because it's sort of slow and adapting and it's backward looking for, towards change, but it's also inherently progressive because it can't help but change, right? And it's the one thing that we can sort of move forward. And I do think, regardless of sort of whether that's legislative or judicial, my hope, and this is where I sort of landed in the talk, I guess, is local, right? So local judges, local elections, starting with cities, moving up to states, because I feel like also it feels more sustainable, and it comes down to the problem of sort of shared civic engagement into a common purpose. That's the only, we're not going to beat money with money, I guess, in this debate, right?
So, great. Thanks, and I apologize for everybody in the room. I don't actually have a tax question.
Oh,
People are
Steve.
very disappointed
I was
about that.
hoping you would have a tax
No,
question.
so, but again, congratulations. And I was actually on the appointments committee with Woody that he chaired last year, along with Sarah Sherman-Stokes. Really, I didn't understand how he was doing all that in addition to all the other stuff he was doing. So, really, kudos to you.
Yeah.
So he claimed. So he claimed.
So I claim.
So we're talking a little bit about the local, but I'm thinking about the global. I could imagine a world where other countries did a better job than we did, and maybe that's true. You're describing sort of a problem that is worldwide, but the failures were all here, and maybe that's true. I can imagine a story where because we did such a bad job that our failures have sort of polluted the world, right? We did such a bad job regulating our tech, while other people were being very careful, we were being reckless. So it didn't matter that they were careful because we did such a bad job that our tech giants are now ruining their lives. But maybe that's not true. I'm just curious whether that is the story or why your story of the failures are domestic.
Yeah, that's a great question, Steve. So in the tech law circles, a lot of people look to what Europe has done in regulating technology. Certainly, they've been, on paper, the most aggressive in regulating technology. And part of that is because privacy is enshrined as a fundamental right, like in the EU Charter, for example. And actually, Stacey, to your question, like where did we go wrong? The word privacy doesn't appear in the US Constitution. Would have been nice. To sort of have more than just sort of a Fourth Amendment sort of state-based, like so. And so there's a little bit of that, and that's what puts the wind in the sails of a lot of that regulatory environment. And then there are some scholars that will say there's the sort of a New Bradford, I don't know, are you talking about sort of the global empires, the idea that like there's the US and we're one model, and then there's the European model, and then there's the China model, and it feels a lot more complicated than that. And I do think that part of the story actually, I was hoping you would ask a question about like part of, it wasn't just sort of Silicon Valley, it was a lot of the capital that existed to fund a lot of these companies. And so it may happen to be a story about, on paper, sort of look like rights in one space, and now the U.S. infected Europe with sort of technology. But actually, there were some innovations in Europe as well. And so I don't want to sort of paint the picture that the only country that's ever done meaningful tech innovation is the United States. And that actually, I think, is changing rapidly now. But I do think that there is a collective action problem, and this actually goes back to Chris's question, which is like, so let me give you an example to make this more real. I have called for the outright banning of facial recognition technology, like not just like, small things like not existing on the planet. And I realize that that's incredibly extreme, and we can unpack sort of all the different dimensions that would still be good even if we did something less than that. But a lot of the pushback that I get when I do that is, well, if you, let's say you convince Congress to do this, they're going to ban it. That's not going to stop other countries from doing it, right? This is an international organization. So I'm wondering if the actual answer, Chris, is that it's local. It's like a sandwich where we like meet in the middle, where there's international collaboration at one point, local movements at the other point, and we sort of work together. And part of the failure that we're seeing is that we started in the middle when we should have been starting at the top or the bottom. I don't know, but that's sort of how I feel about it.
You have a question from your sister.
Oh,
Hi. Hello.
I'm sorry about outing you about 23andMe.
That's okay. It was a long time ago. I also want to point out that what you just described about the sandwich is reminiscent of the abyss in the Stranger Things and the wormhole. So I don't know if you did that on purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so as a person who writes narratively about my life, that is what I do. I write about my family, I write about my friends, I write about my children to some degree. And so I'm very obviously aware of the kind of information that I share on the internet about my own life. But as I think a lot of people in this room probably do know, the publishing industry today, I write memoir, and probably different than a lot of people here, have been told by agents that merit alone will not get you an agent. It will not publish your book. You actually had an agent tell me that you need to get your book in the hands of someone who will get it in the hands of someone else, who puts it in the hands of Rihanna, who tweets about it. So I guess my question is, slightly less academic question, it would behoove my career to go on social media and overshare every day, to tell everyone about every aspect of my life and my children, and to really let people connect with me online, right? And my question is, being that my goal is to eventually get an agent, publish a book, I continue to make a living off of my own life. One, what danger am I creating for the larger population in my partaking in that? And is there a happy medium in which I can pull my audience in and engage them with social media stories and reels of me, talking to the camera about my life, without endangering my children or myself and my privacy?
Yeah, great question. And it brings up a larger point that is probably worth talking about. So I sort of come at this because I do sort of get the question sometimes, like I come at this like, what should I, like, how do we, it's scary out there because I guess I give scary talks. And my perspective on this is like, we're all just trying to make it, man. Like, we're just trying to make it from the moment we wake up to the end of the day. And people should be protected no matter what they choose and not have to worry about, like, is this choice going to jeopardize my kids, or is this making me hypocritical because I use this? And I'll be honest, I'll just sort of come clean here. I use facial recognition technology on my phone, right? And so I don't want to, I feel guilty about it, but they took away my thumbprint reader, right? So it was like the thing that we do, right? And so like we all sort of make decisions, right? Based on, we're all just living our lives, man. So I feel as though what I fight for in rules is like we should be protected no matter what we choose. We should be able to make choices unburdened by undue privacy risk is sort of my philosophy. And so with that in mind, my advice is like, don't overthink it too much. Like just sort of have it in the back of your mind. Like, you know, the internet sort of lasts for a long time, and stuff that you may think doesn't last long actually hangs out there for a while. And then you sort of like, I feel like we just sort of make the call, but I don't think there are any bright lines, you know, other than the ones that you would obviously know about sort of posting that you can follow. And I think that also sort of follows for AI use, just sort of while we're here, right? It's like, you know, I certainly don't sort of want to make people be like, I'm never using AI ever again. And mainly because we're not going to be able to make that promise, right? Like the world is going to change, and it is going to sort of work its way in slowly but surely. And so what we need is an infrastructure that protects people from having to sort of put that impossible burden, you know, like like my sweet friend that in the year of, you know, 2016 still had a little flip phone and got lost everywhere. And I was like, just use the turn-by-turn directions, man. And so we, you know, and that's why I sort of resist the idea that this is all our responsibility. So anyway, this is just my way of letting you off the hook from obsessing about it too much.
Okay, our last question comes from Will Hartzog.
Hey, you did ask a question.
Hi, Woody. It's
Totally
me,
normal, totally
your
normal.
son, Will, from home. So you've been asked a lot of very important, very urgent questions tonight, but I'd like to raise one that I think is more important and urgent than all of them. In any given field that you choose, whether it be music or sports, every great superstar has a nickname. Bruce Springsteen is the boss. Charles Barkley is the round mound of rebound. I would say this brings you to superstar status.
Yeah.
What's your nickname, Woody?
No. You can't give yourself, George Costanza proved that you can't give yourself a nickname,
But
right?
Kobe Bryant proved that you could.
Oh, touche. Kobe Bryant did give himself a nickname. I don't know. I'll have to think about that one. I mean, you know,
It's a shame we won't be able to see each other within the next few
Right.
hours.
So I'm now going to throw my dad under the bus and share his nickname, and maybe I'll just sort of use that as inspiration. So my dad gave himself the nickname of Silky because he was so smooth. So I'll sit on that one. Thank you very much for the questions. Thank you all. Thank you all so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you being here. It means the world to me, truly.